Don't really ever see them talk except for one time later at a party, and there's no actual audible dialogue, so it's not impossible to theorize that she's just spying on her daughter's love interest, or at least paying someone to look into their finances or something. She does seem very invested in making sure that her daughter finds somebody who is financially stable, and I'm just saying that she's a pretty suspicious character, and I wouldn't trust her to take my coat. So we get that brief little scene with Tommy buying her roses before we transition back into the apartment where Lisa is ordering a half Canadian bacon and pineapple pizza with the other half artichoke and pesto with light cheese. And I've got to say, of the things in this movie which feel true to the universe and actually feel like they come from the real characters, this is one of the few. Because I think as soon as all of us heard her order a half Canadian bacon and half pesto pizza, we knew who the Canadian bacon was and we knew who the pesto was. I mean, I'd be down with either side, but Lisa's definitely a Canadian bacon kind of gal, and Johnny is literally made of pesto. It's been like, what, 10 minutes or so since we've seen Denny. So, yep, of course, here Denny, he shows up again, right at the door, and Lisa answers when he rings, but he never really comes inside. He just comes inside of the doorway and asks Lisa, Denny comes over, he rings on the door, Lisa answers the door, he says hi, and then, he just asks if he can kiss her. And he comes over for all of just 28 seconds. Really just long enough to ask Lisa to say hi to Johnny and to make a pass at her. And in her credit, she once again turns Denny down, which honestly, good on you, girl. Keeping yourself off the sex offender registry and whatnot. Lisa, she might not have many scruples, but, she's not banging underage boys at least. She's fine with them sitting downstairs while she gets her swerve on and them just creepily listening while they eat apples, but she would definitely prefer them not to be in the same room at least. And we know that. Canonically, because they've asked. And she said no. So we watch Johnny as he comes home. He gives Lisa the flowers because he's such a nice guy. Always getting gifts, but oh no! Johnny didn't get the promotion. And this is where we get our first taste of how Johnny, who's definitely not a movie surrogate for Tommy, feels about the world. And Johnny, who is definitely not a movie surrogate for Tommy, he feels that his job has betrayed him. And they didn't keep their promise, and they tricked him, and he does not care anymore. And it's a great scene. It has true and real feeling and passion from Tommy, and I think that comes from so much actual feeling in those lines from him, because that is how he honestly feels about how so much of his life is gone. So he really delivers on this scene, and he manages to be both tonally more intense and like so much sillier than he ever intended, and it's delightful. In what is a very upsetting and shocking twist, Lisa does not tell Johnny hi from Denny, which I am upset about. Like, what else does she have to do today? Denny went through all of the trouble and effort of stopping by and asking for kisses and asking Lisa to say hi, and instead she decides to try and get Johnny drunk. She doesn't even bother to, take the 2 seconds just to say, oh, hi, from Denny. It literally takes 2 seconds. That is all it is. That is all the effort she would have to put forth. But, that's definitely not Lisa. That's not our Canadian bacon girl. Lisa, she decides to implement what we are going to learn is her master plan to try and break up with Johnny, a plan that makes no sense whatsoever, and step one of the master plan is to get Johnny drunk. But the problem is, it's that Johnny doesn't drink because Johnny's a nice guy. So he refuses several times, but Lisa, she is super insistent that they both enjoy some of the scotchka that they got here, and says that if he loves her, he'll drink it. And she lifts the glass up and is literally forcing the scotchka down his throat. So then you get this great, hilarious, drunken scene with Johnny and Lisa. Johnny stumbling around and the weird pan flute, that Zelda pan flute music, it makes a big comeback here. And Lisa, she begs Johnny to make love to her with a tie weirdly strapped around her head, I guess to signify that she's drunk, because that is what drunk people do. It kind of feels like a couple of 12-year-olds who accidentally got served from the wrong punch bowl at their parents' New Year's Eve party. It has that entire vibe to it. Well, they have their special pillow fight time because, again, guys, this is romance. This is romance. You have to learn about romance and how to do romance. I think most of us out there aren't doing sexy pillow fight time because we've just given up on it after we were 9 or 10 years old. So I want to encourage everyone to get back to sexy pillow fight time because we need to learn romance again. So they have their sexy pillow fight, and it goes fantastically. And we get another awkward love scene that is just a series of weird cuts from the last one. And then we transition into a green field. Just for about a second, we'll get to see this weird green field transition a couple more times throughout the movie. And then we just go right back to Lisa and her mom. We transition back to see Lisa and her mom back in the apartment, planning Johnny's birthday, which she has invited her mom to, and her mom steers the conversation over to her own problems, which is something she normally does. She mentions a herald, who I can only assume based on the conversation, and from what we later learn about Claudette, is an ex-husband from whom she has attained a home in a divorce some 15 years ago. But the actual ownership of the home must be like a little bit up in the air because now he's trying to come for it. And nobody's helping her. And on top of it all, she's dying. She's got breast cancer. Yeah, don't worry though. It is not important. That's where we get the famous, "and I have cancer" line. But we will literally never mention it again. She also mentions an Edward, who she confirms that she divorced. So that's at least 2 men in the bag at this point. Yeah, Lisa and her mom, not awesome people. So this is when we get the meat and potatoes of the scene. Lisa tells her mom that Johnny hit her. So that's part 2 of plan. First, we get Johnny drunk. Then, we tell people that Johnny hit her while he was drunk. Then, profit? Yeah, it's like an underpants gnome kind of plan. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know. Then she's going to leave Johnny, or people will sympathize with her, or something like that. But it's one of those things where it doesn't matter, because nobody actually knows whether or not Johnny got drunk because they weren't there. You could just tell them, again, whatever you want, and you wouldn't need to actually stage inconsequential parts like the him drinking part. Maybe staging you getting hit part would have been, I guess, a good idea. But the problem is, it seems like there is several steps short of a good Gone Girl setup. Maybe if she had injured herself when they were both drunk. Or called the cops or something, but she has none of that. She just got him drunk and has no explanation as to why she didn't just try and claim abuse at that point. That is to say that none of this obviously matters because Claudette doesn't believe her and doesn't care. When Lisa tries to insist, her mom just completely ignores her. Done and done. Plot thread vanishes off to the island of abandoned storylines. Lisa and her mom decide to mosey on back to the apartment where 2 of Johnny and Lisa's friends have strolled in. We get to watch a little scene of them before they get there where they're making out on the couch. And this character, Michelle, she drops some chocolate and then she dips down to pick it up. And then we see a very wide-eyed expression from Mike, and I just don't know why. I guess it's because she's doing something down there, I guess, real fast. And it seems also like these people just can walk in whenever they want because Lisa, she is just 100% cool with it. No big deal. So there's no nudity, but this is like a super weird scene. We have this weird off-screen blowjob face that I just... it's pretty great. I can't imagine anyone actually living like this where they just leave their front door open and just all of these people just shuffle in and out of their house all of the time. But it's not really my business. So Lisa and Claudette come home and Mike and Michelle dip out, awkwardly confronted with their lovemaking. I'm not sure they would have left if it was just Lisa. I think they would have just been like, "Oh, hey, Lisa, what's going on there? We're just getting down to business down here." But Claudette, the mom, comes, and that's, I guess, a little bit too much for him, so they bounce. But Mike does come back real fast to grab his underwear. He had his pants on, but yeah, he comes back real fast to grab them underwear. But it's been, what, another 10 minutes or so? No, not even quite. So yeah, here's Denny again. Yep. Knock on the door, we get another Denny, and thank God that at least Lisa's mom will call him out on how weird it is that everyone's coming in and out of the apartment, that it's like busier than Grand Central Station. And we get a little mid-sized Denny performance here, clocking in at a nice 23 seconds. So we end scene with Lisa and Claudette, and we transition to Denny and Chris R. in front of an early 2000s digital recreation of the San Francisco skyline. And you would be forgiven for not knowing who Chris R. is, because he has not shown up at this point, he's not been mentioned. He is a super memorable character, but again, you might more remember him as that crazy psychopath wielding a gun halfway through the movie who has no impact on the plot whatsoever. So Chris R., played by Jan Jigajan, he takes this movie from a 4 to a 14 as though he was the living embodiment of Crank, with an acting style that makes you wonder if he was actually on drugs at the time of production, and I did check he wasn't, but it's the most totally inconsistent scene in the entire movie. So what you essentially get here is a scene where we have this unknown character, Chris R., and he is asking this known character, this very nice but sexually confused Denny, where the money for the drugs is. And Denny, he's just like, just give me like 5 minutes, it'll be here soon, just give me 5 minutes. Which is, I don't know if you've ever had to wait 5 minutes somewhere. It's a unacceptable wait. Like, who wants to wait 5 minutes? I don't. You don't want to wait 5 minutes. You'd be upset if I put a 5-minute pause in this podcast. So just as upset as you would be, Chris R. is likewise upset and just flips out on Denny, taking a gun, putting it to his head, threatening to kill him, all before Mark and Johnny rush onto the rooftop to grab Chris R., pull the gun away from him, and then drag him off set. We then immediately have Claudette and Lisa appear as they start to interrogate Denny. Now, you might be wondering, why does Chris R. turn into such of a psychopath all of a sudden? And why is he threatening to kill the nicest character in the movie? And the truth of it is, you've got it all backwards. You see, there is effort put into this movie if you actually dig through the sludge for it. Tommy knew how he wanted this movie to end, and it seems he has done some reading, or at least heard about Chekhov's gun at some point, and that all really stuck with him. He knew if he wanted a gun in a final chapter, then he needed to have a psychotic maniac wielding it around in the first chapter, or something like that. As far as the actual plot, and not the implementation of plot devices, Chris R. is here because Denny apparently owes him money for drugs. What drugs? It doesn't matter, because Mark and Johnny have already taken him off screen. Chris R. is gone. We're never going to hear about him again. We're never going to hear about the drugs again. We're never going to hear about the money again. He apparently gets arrested, but they apparently keep the gun, or at least Johnny does. Because remember, Chris R. was only here to deliver Chekhov's gun. He's really just a delivery guy in a psychotic package. And it's messy for sure, and it did lead into another fan theory that because this all happens so quickly, Johnny and Mark must have killed Chris R. in the alley off scene. Which I think it's funny, but anywho, so Lisa and Claudette appear and they start to interrogate Denny, and like I said, nothing in this movie matters because Claudette interrogates Denny like, how much money do you owe him? And he says it doesn't matter, and she's like, what kind of drugs are they? It doesn't matter. And we just abandon this storyline as well, and we can just sail it off to the island of abandoned storylines to sit with all the rest. Oh, and for all of you Philip Haldeman fans out there, this is our longest Denny segment in the entire movie by far. Winning by a league and a mile, this segment comes in at 3 minutes and 37 seconds of Denny runtime. We get treated to another scene of Mark and Lisa just talking again on the phone. And again, neither seems to be talking the same language. So, let me if I may. Lisa, I miss you. Mark, I just saw you. What are you talking about? Lisa, I just wanted to hear your sexy voice. I keep thinking about your strong hands around my body. It excites me so much. I love you. Mark, is Johnny there? Lisa, he's in the shower. Mark, I don't understand you. Why do you do things like this? Lisa, because I love you. You just don't care, do you? Mark, no, I do care. But we agreed. It's over between us. Lisa, I understand. It's our secret. Like the fact these two can actually manage to communicate well enough when we turn away the cameras to get all the parts and pieces aligned just amazes me. I can only imagine the two of them trying to buy groceries